Good morning. Welcome to She Became Visible. I have to tell you, I'm kind of fangirling out here because I have always wanted to have Dr. Julie Hanks on my show, and I have met her numerous times at different events, and she's just approachable. I mean, she's just a real life person, even though you kind of put her on this, pedestal of infamy, or I do anyway. She would never came across like that. And but I have admired her from afar for many years, and I admired her with like speculation, like, ooh, this Julie Hanks, I don't know about her. And I remember saying one time to a friend I had that used to be a good friend till I left the church. Anyway, about something like I had read or something that I had seen or heard about Dr. Julie Hanks. And she made some snarky comment, well, my mom used to be in her ward, and blah, blah, blah. And I remember saying, what does that have to do with anything? So that immediately put me like I will defend this woman because I have so much admiration for her. Because as a woman who was also a mother and in the same fundamental religion as her, I watched her life kind of go in a different direction that I wanted to go on, but I felt obligated in this direction. So I was just torn. And so I am so excited to have her on my show. Let me start out by showing you uh, the Dr. Julie Hanks, and I want to emphasize the doctor because she's so young and she's so accomplished, and I'm so impressed with what she's done in her life. But she is a therapist, an author, and a former singer-songwriter known for her work with women, particularly those navigating faith transitions. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a PhD and has been publicly vocal about her own recent departure from the Latter-day Saint LDS Church. She has written books such as The Burnout Cure and The Assertiveness Guide for Women, and her work often focuses on self-love, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, empowerment, and navigating challenges with authenticity. So that is Dr. Julie Hanks. So let me stop talking about her and bring her on so she can talk about herself. So welcome this morning,
Oh,
Julie Hanks.
thank you, Renee. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, you are the absolute epitome of the whole reason for my podcast, which is She Became Visible. And I have to tell you, I don't know if you've heard this or not, but I got the title from a friend that I was interviewing on my podcast. I was doing a podcast called Go Gray Dame, and I was interviewing fellow women that had let their hair go gray. And this woman was, she said, she didn't shave her head, but she went into that cute little punk style mohawk thing. And she said, suddenly I had people on the street stopping me and asking about my gray hair. And I realized that I had become visible. And I was like, oh,
Mm,
I love that. I love that. And she started doing some kind of acting, modeling stuff late in life. And all
yeah.
of this kind of went back to her going gray. And so that's kind of where I took I got the title. But I really wanted to emphasize women in my demographic or in, over 50
Yeah.
that had decided that their life had value, that they had a purpose on earth that wasn't scripted for them.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of I made like a hand. I'm only going to interview women. I'm only going to interview. Well, that kind of went by the way because there's a lot of there's some good men out there. There's a few.
A lot.
Yeah,
There's a lot of them. There's a
exactly.
lot.
And very intelligent and
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful men. So I had to kind of go, well, okay, I'll find a few. I'll have a few on, like Dr. Benjamin Parks or Matt Harris or
Hmm.
this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so Julie, introduce yourself to my audience and tell them about, because what I love about when I've heard you is the description of who you were, who you knew you were, even as a child. So
Yes.
talk about that.
Yeah. So I was very acutely aware of inequality in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints from a pretty young age in my family structure and also in the organization. of the church, and I knew that that wasn't right. There's something was wrong with that. Um, and I set out to figure out how am I going to create a life where my future daughters are excited to grow up instead of hesitant or possibly terrified, because
Mm,
I didn't see anyone any women around me. I mean, they had great things about them. So I love so many of the women of my childhood, but I didn't see anyone whose life I wanted when I was 30, 40, 50, 60, and beyond. I just thought I have to figure this out. And for whatever reason, I think it's a little rebelliousness, but I thought, I deserve to figure this out. And I felt responsibility for figuring it out. I didn't feel like someone was going to figure that out for me. And so at a pretty young age, it set me out on like, I got to figure out what kind of life I want. And I took responsibility for creating that.
interesting. Where do you fall in your family? There's 6 kids in your family?
9 children. I'm the second oldest, but I took on the role of the oldest. I have a very brilliant older sister who was kind of like, "Peace out, you all," and I was like, "Oh, I'll be the helper. I'll, take care of everybody." So
Yeah.
I kind of took on the role of the oldest child. So I've been a caregiver my whole life. I took care of my siblings. I had my first child. I got married at 20, had a baby at 21. But I had that, like, I still deserve to develop. And so even though I was married and had kids, I finished my bachelor's. I went straight into my master's. I was also performing and recording and writing songs. And I just had this tenacity of like, I deserve to have the life I want just as much as my kid or my then spouse. And so I just really felt like I had to claw through the cultural crap just to advocate for myself, to have and accomplish what I wanted to accomplish instead of only being a support. And I love being a support. I loved supporting my family. And I also felt deserving, that I have dreams and mine are important too.
Well, so tell us how you navigated that because I know you've mentioned that your husband is still active in the LDS church,
Yeah.
very believing, very dedicated. And so as your both, like you said, you know, I exactly the same, got married at 20, first baby at 21. And how did your husband react to your like, yes, I've had a baby. Thank you very much. I'll be in class. See you at 7:3,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
how did
So,
that work?
well, I want to be clear. He's not my husband anymore, but when I
Right.
was married, he loved me and was very supportive. And I don't think he would have chosen everything that he got. Like, I don't think he knew everything he was choosing when he chose me. Uh, and he was a very engaged dad. And, I was in school and I was performing on the weekend. So I might be gone for the whole weekend.
Oh my,
Sometimes I would take my kids, sometimes I'd take everybody. And so I just assumed like you're going to support me just like you assume I'm going to support you.
yeah.
And it was very much from the beginning a partnership because I required it.
Okay, okay. So did he come from a home that had anything but the typical patriarchal system? So he
No,
didn't have
stay
a
at
mom
home
that
mom,
stay at
dad,
home.
and you know, bishop, stake president, worked regional rep, church callings, mission president.
Oh my,
So, yeah, so he comes from a very traditional family. Mine was very traditional too, except that my dad's a musician,
yeah.
and so that added a little like flexibility in there, but it was still pretty much like the man's the head of the household. So we both kind of came from that, and I right out of the gate when we got married just challenged that pretty quickly.
Interesting. I wonder if that helped. I wonder if he was able to see the success of your dad and the music and everything that it did for the church. And you also, I mean, I remember my kids especially for youth, you were,
I was
yeah. So I wonder if that was a like, oh, well, it's okay because she's kind of following in her dad's footsteps, which is still very churchy. So it's okay for her.
Yes, I think he thought I would do firesides and then work part-time as a social worker,
Oh,
and I think he had no idea what I mean, poor thing, poor guy.
I
Like,
know.
he had no idea. I didn't know what he was getting into either. I've evolved and
Yeah.
I've become more and more visible through the years, and that's not the trajectory of most LDS women, especially older LDS women. You don't become more visible,
Yeah.
Come on, Renee.
I know, and that I think that's the thing that I see, and it's interesting how these things that kind of lay dormant inside of you, and then it takes someone else to kind of make a little crack, and where you're kind of allowed. Like for example, one of the and this sounds ridiculous, but I mean, I this was okay. I resigned my membership from the church about 4 years ago. So this was about 4 years ago. So I was in my late 60s, and I had sent in my papers to resign. And you at the time, you were offering people a free like 30-minute consult. And so I put my name down and we had something scheduled, and I was off doing something, but the call needed to be done. So I sat down in a corridor and sat down on the floor, and I explained to you that I had put in my papers to resign, but I hadn't told my husband, hadn't told anybody yet, because I was following these podcasts, and they were saying if you don't go through your bishop, if you go through like Quit Mormon, which is what I did, it could take 90 days. Who knows? It's going to take a long time. I was like, okay, well, I got 90 days to figure this out. And so I put in the papers, and so I said to you, I don't know when and how I'm going to tell anybody, but I'm terrified that the bishop is going to find out, and then he's going to call me into his office. And you said, and you could say no. And I was like, what? I can what? And
Yeah.
I literally was like, I can say no. And you're like, yeah, you're a grown woman. You can say no. And it was life shatter. It was
It's
like
like,
the light came
mind
out of the bunker.
mind blown.
Yes, and I was able to, like, that whole cute TV show that, really, I forget what it was called. But the bunker door, and I was able to step out into the sunshine and go, "Oh, I guess I could," but I don't think I've ever stood up to a man,
Mm,
in my life. And I've always just, behind the scenes. And with the indoctrination that these men have power and authority, and I just went along with that. And I thought,
mm,
if they call you in, you have to go in. So that was the beginning, I think, of my realization that, oh, wait a minute, I have choices that I didn't know I had.
right,
And
right.
and so it just drew me to become a fangirl of yours.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
but
That
tell me
just
about that.
that's such a great example of my one of my main messages. And people often mischaracterize what I say. Say, "Oh, you just say women do whatever you want. Be selfish. Don't take it." I'm not saying that, but I'm saying there is an option to make your own decision, to say no, to do something different.
Yeah.
You What you want matters, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so often women are taught to abandon their own intuition. And so that's really what I teach at the
Right.
core is you can trust yourself and you can speak up for yourself and say what you think, feel, want, and need.
Yeah. I that's so that's I wish that the more women would have this enlightened experience that I had, because I remember even before that, before I'd even, thought that the church had issues that I did not like. I remember I was called into a position in the Scouts. I was going to be an assistant Weeblo leader. And our youngest son was severely disabled. So anytime I went somewhere, I had to haul him
Mm.
with me. And so I'd get him dressed and get the bag packed and the whole bit and drag him to the Weeblo leader. And then I'm just sitting there. And I realized very quickly that I was the gopher for the Weeblo leader. Like I was the assistant, but I basically was like, go do this, go do this, go do
Yeah.
this. And I thought, yeah, I'm not doing that. I don't have time for this. So I did it for the season. And then when the summer was over and we didn't have anything, and I said to the bishop, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not dragging TJ to these meetings just to sit there and be told I have to call 4 women and get some cupcakes someplace, you know?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, this is a calling. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this calling anymore, you know?
You can't do that, Rene.
So the summer went on and the fall began, and the Weeblo leader called me and said, okay, well, we got our first meeting coming up. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. Did the bishop not get to you? The bishop that's your husband? Did he not tell you I'm not doing this anymore? And she was like, well, he said you had talked, but I said, yeah, no, I'm not doing this anymore, you know?
Yeah.
So I was able to do that much. And then it was probably like building blocks. And then in
Yeah.
2018, again, before I'd done any church stuff, I just remember going to the temple and going, I'm not doing this anymore. I am not doing this.
Yep.
And I told my husband, I'm never going back to the temple again. And so there were little cracks, I think. And then when you said that, I think I was like, okay, I'm taking back my life. But and exactly what you said, Julie, the idea that when you tell people that they should have self-awareness. First of all, I don't think anybody in the church knows what self-awareness is. So let's start out by talking about that.
Yeah.
Let's go to what is self-aware, because that is what you teach. Who am I? And it's almost like, I remember when they changed the strengthening the youth thing, and the women were still saying, I am a daughter of God, and I am this, I'm that. And the boys were going, I am the son of a living God. And I remember going, those two little themes are completely different,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So
Yeah.
self-awareness. So it's a self-awareness is the conscious understanding of one's own thoughts, feelings, motivations, and behaviors. It's the ability to see yourself clearly, recognize your strengths and weaknesses, and understand how your actions and emotions impact others and yourself. And developing self-awareness allows for personal growth, better decision making, and improved relations. So
Yeah.
because that's what you're teaching.
Right.
That's all you're teaching.
Right. But if you think that the self is bad, right? There's a lot of teachings like the natural man is an enemy to God. I don't the closer I get to myself, the more I realize I am good. What I want is good. And so I teach women, like, what you want is good. You don't have to silence that or be afraid of it. And so that awareness, and it's really just, what do I think, feel, want, and need in a nutshell? And being able to express that. And people will often accuse me of, like, that selfish and just do whatever you want. I'm like, no, there's an awareness of the impact on other people. But we're taught that from the time we're born. We don't need to hear that message again. We need to hear it's okay to speak what you think, feel, want, and need.
Right.
And so it's kind of a counterbalance to that other message of you're responsible for other people. Like, we've heard that from birth.
Yeah. How do you explain? Because I think the difference between and I know you've done a whole thing on the proclamation to the world, the family, yada, yada. But the idea that men are told that your role is to be the provider for the family, the protector and the provider. Therefore, a man is given permission to seek after his loves, his hobbies, his needs, his desires, his recognition through his employment, because in the long run, he's providing for the family. And so when women want to pursue hobbies or interests or some kind of a career, it's like, no, 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 no.
It takes you away from the home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's where men are like, I'm just providing for you. Look what I've done for you. Look how I've served you by
Right.
providing, when in reality, they have totally gone on their own path.
Right. In a lot of ways, in the LDS culture, men are given more permission to develop a self.
Yeah.
And it's not all or nothing. There are women who are traditional stay-at-home moms who continue self-development. But there's also a big group of women who would develop in other areas, but that's been squelched because you're not supposed to want things outside of home and family. And so when I was growing up, I felt like something was wrong with me because I wanted to be a performing songwriter. I wanted to be a therapist. I wanted to own a practice someday. And I wanted to be married and have a family. And I
Yeah.
thought I wasn't righteous because I wanted things outside of what I was told I should want. Where men are told they can want a career and education and to be visible and to have a home and family, and the home and family will support all those things. And
Right.
women aren't taught that.
Yeah. And I think the hardest thing is, as in both of us, I mean, both sexes, when you're in a very high demand religion with a lot of indoctrination, and you grow up being told that, then you can't do anything else but say, because I've had this said to me, it's like, well, you're so selfish. Well,
Oh yeah,
why do you want to do something that doesn't involve your family? Even go away for a girls' weekend. How selfish of you to go away
right,
for a girls' weekend without your family.
right,
And it's like, yeah, you guys are playing basketball every Tuesday night over at the church without your family, so I don't know
yeah,
what the difference is, or
yeah. There's a double standard, right? And I have often said, tell confining women to one role, saying all women are to be stay-at-home mothers, is
yeah,
like saying all men are to be accountants. It doesn't matter
right,
if you're creative in the arts. It doesn't matter if you want to be a writer. You are to be an accountant, and if you're righteous, you will be an accountant. And
yeah,
that's what we do to women. And I just see family life as a part of life. It's not your identity. It's not every part of who you are. And
right,
it's we define it in the LDS church often so much as like the core of who a woman is. And for me, it's a huge part of who I am, but it's not all of me.
yeah, yeah, exactly, and the desire of to want it all is like, I love this, you can have it all, you just maybe can't have it all at once,
Yeah.
and, which is true, but what I see, especially in the LDS church, because it is a proselyting religion, that the idea that a woman's role is in the home, and so when those children grow up, tell me if you've heard this, when those children grow up and now they're empty nesters, but then there's a thing right now, tell me if you've seen this, where I don't know if it's a millennial, I think it's more of a Gen X thing, where they're getting online and they're going, yeah, where's grandma and grandpa? I mean, I asked them to babysit and they think they can just go have their golden years and not be a part of the grandchildren. Well, they should be with our grandchildren forming, and I'm like, no, no, they should not. I mean, yes, of
Oh,
course
yeah.
they
Right.
should.
No, I know what you mean. But
Yeah,
like an entitlement of like the kids thinking that their parents still belong to them and that they own their identity.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if you were a true good Mormon woman, especially, your whole life should now revolve around your grandchildren.
I think that's why so many couples go on missions.
Oh,
It's like a good excuse to get away.
100%. It is totally like, oh, grandma and grandpa are serving this is their sixth
Their
mission,
sixth mission.
you know,
They
because
don't
they
know who you are, grandchild,
because they're like,
but they love the
oh, we
Lord.
would love to be at your scouting event, but you know what? We got to go to Spain. So, it's 100%. And I think the men retire from their occupation where they received recognition and accolades and raises and a golden watch at
Right,
retirement. And then they're like, well, now I don't know who I am. I have no
right,
importance. I have no value. So you get to go on a mission and all of a sudden you're president so and so.
right. And we
Yeah.
define we not just LDS people, but Western culture, we tend to define people by what they do instead of who they are at their core.
Yeah.
And I think it's really challenged when people retire or when there's an empty nest because you're not defined by your caregiving or your providing, right? When we put men or women into rigid roles, when those you take those roles away, people can be very disoriented.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about your journey
Yeah.
because I love when you would try to explain what your role was as a therapist, a legal profession with licensing and rules around what you
Right.
cannot do.
Right.
let me see if I add, I'm trying to see if I, let me see, it's like kids. What is the role of a therapist? A therapist's role is to provide support and guidance to help people manage mental health conditions and emotional distress by assessing their needs, creating personalized treatment plans, and using various therapeutic techniques to promote growth and well-being. They facilitate a safe space for clients to explore their thoughts and feelings, develop coping strategies, and improve resilience. Okay,
Yeah.
nowhere in there does it say, and increase their spirituality and their knowledge of the scriptures.
Or to tell them what religion they should be a part of,
Yeah,
or that they should believe something. And what so many people don't understand is that I have guidelines. Even when I'm outside of the therapy office, I am still bound by, when I'm acting in my professional role, by a code of ethics. And one of the main code of ethics of my profession, which is social work, is self-determination. And Orthodox influencers get so angry at me because I am not telling people to stay in the church.
yeah,
I'm not telling people to leave. I am indifferent when it comes to someone else's spiritual life in terms of what they decide. I can help them explore it. I'm responsible for my own spiritual life, but I can't tell someone else. And when I'm not acting in the role of a professional, like, I'll have different conversations, but online, when I'm acting as a professional, I promote self-determination. It's not I'm not there to evangelize. And that just gets people so upset. They think I should be preaching. And I'm like, that is unethical behavior for a therapist to do when I'm acting as a professional. I cannot evangelize for a specific religion.
right. How do the therapists that fall under the church uh, counseling program, how do they get around the
They
legal?
don't. They don't. And there's a lot of unethical practices happening. They have to first pledge pledge allegiance to the church. They
Yeah,
have to. There are guidelines. They are required to talk to the congregant's bishop, their client's bishop. In a lot of cases, they have to report back.
ooh,
Um, they can say, are you reading your scriptures? Have you gone to the temple?
right.
I would never say that unless a client said, I really think it would be helpful. Or I might say, are there spiritual practices that have been helpful in the past that help your mental health? And they might say, going to the temple. And I'm like, great. Have you considered going? But I would never just say, I think you should go to the temple, right? It has to come from the client.
Interesting. And that's so misunderstood. I really
Mhm.
think that unless you've been to therapy in some way, you don't you think that you're going to the doctor and
Yeah.
you're saying, I have a stomach ache, and they're going to let me do an MRI. We're going to do some blood tests. Oh, we've diagnosed you with, ulcers,
Yeah.
and here's your medication. And that's how they look at mental therapy. Is,
Right. Right.
is oh, let me tell me what your symptoms are. Oh, I see you're manic depressive. Let me give you some medication. Ta-da, we're done.
Right,
You
right.
Yeah,
It's a long process. And therapists don't tell people what to do. That's a huge misunderstanding.
yeah.
I'm not going to tell a client what to do. I'm going to help them figure out what is best for them. I might
Interesting.
give suggestions, but it's not like, oh, you go into a therapist's office and like, okay, tell me what to do. And the therapist's like, okay, you should do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
you teach strategies, you can teach skills, but you're not going to tell them what to do with their life.
That's so interesting, and I really do think that is misunderstood
Mhm.
in the world. So tell me, so you said you're 1 out of 9. So
Yeah.
where did your behavior fall? Because I know you said that you're a little bit of a rebellious, and I
I
remember.
so I'm a people pleasing rebel. So I was like the helpful, like look good, like
Yes,
had lots of friends, cheerleader, student body vice president, blah blah blah. Like I was I was the perfect child, but I was rebellious inside.
yeah, yeah. So where do your other siblings fall like, I know you said at one point in one of your podcasts, your parents were like, "Would you like to?" have some therapy. Would
Yes.
you like to
So
open this?
I
Please, Mom,
was
tell her yes.
yeah, I acted in on myself. So I didn't act out like in rebellion, but
Yeah.
turned my anger and my confusion toward myself and developed an eating disorder and depression.
Okay.
And so I
Love that you
was
said
I
that.
was like, I'm not okay. And they're like, you're not okay. And do you want to go to therapy? And I was like, yes, because I don't know what's going on and you don't know how to help me. And so I really give my parents a ton of credit because that changed my life.
So it
Changed my
wasn't
life.
you were rebellious and they were like, "We gotta get this girl back on track."
No, I was like the perfect child, but
Yeah.
inside I was dying.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Okay, so, so that introduced you to the therapy world, and then
Yes,
and
just
oh,
my so as a 14 through, through the rest of my life. So I've been
yeah,
going to therapy for 4 decades.
yeah,
Um, it opened my world to thinking, so metacognition, so thinking about my thoughts and feelings, right?
wow,
Like opening up this whole way of like, oh, I can think, I can name what's happening inside of me. It was just, I'm a very passionate, deep feeling person. And there was just so much that was unprocessed.
yeah,
And so I started gaining tools to process that and to make sense of my thoughts and my feelings. And it was life changing and
interesting.
really helped develop a depth for a young person that look like it makes me emotional thinking about, but I worked really hard to develop depth that
Yeah,
I didn't have as a teenager.
wow.
But I developed that and I just honor her for saying like, yeah, I do need help.
Yeah,
Because I was really, really in pain and self-destructing,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
didn't know why. And so I'm just so grateful for my parents that um, they had the insight to, I don't think they'd done therapy at that point, but to
right,
say that and that I said yes and I was open to the process because it's changed my life and made my life so much richer. And it really gave me a vision of how I can make a difference for other people.
that's amazing. And bless your parents for that because I think in their generation, which your parents are probably I'm probably in between,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
56 and I'm 71 and your parents are probably 10 years old. So it's like a 10-year thing, you know?
yeah, yeah.
That generation did not think therapy, especially in
No,
the world.
no, not at all. And so I just like honor them. They loved us and they wanted us to thrive and they could see that I wasn't.
Yeah. And what about your siblings? What do you have,
Um,
different personalities, I'm
oh
sure.
yeah. Yeah. There was all where
Yeah.
my siblings are the most interesting bunch of people that you would ever meet. I mean, if I go through like let me just tell you, like, one's a tattoo artist, one's a children's television star, one's a YouTube star, one's a professional DJ, one is a voice actor, one has 2 master's degrees, is fluent in Arabic, and served in the army for
Oh,
years. Like, one is a craft, like she makes everything. She gardens, she crafts, she like. There's just fascinating people,
yeah, yeah,
entrepreneurial spirit
yeah.
kinds of people. Creative, really fascinating group and some of my favorite people, but
I love
there's 1 out of 9 that's still active in the LDS church.
No. Okay,
Yeah.
here's an interesting concept.
Okay.
So your dad was living his life, in the spotlight,
Right.
strengthening his talents and things like this. Your mom was taking care of 9 children. So
Yeah.
you and I think I've heard you say this before as well. Have did you discuss with her what were some dreams that you had to put away? Or some life goals that you had to say, "Well, that's not for me. I have 9
That
children."
did I ask her that?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, she didn't really get to develop those. She knew she was smart,
yeah,
but the culture just said, "You get married and you have children," and so
yeah,
she didn't even get to dream.
yeah. So she didn't even have dreams to that she
Right.
was born or
The
grieve.
dreams were told to her, were dictated to her.
Right.
And just even in her 70s, she's really in 60s and 70s, she's really come, into her own. And she's been doing therapy, which has been
Oh,
amazing,
yeah.
and has really embraced who she is and what matters to her, which has been really beautiful to see and is a good example to me of continuing to grow even as an older adult.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, did your parents stay married? I can't remember.
No, they divorced when I was in my mid-20s.
Okay. And did she or either one of them remarry?
He's remarried twice. He's on his third marriage. She never dated or remarried.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a TikTok the other day that was funny. They said, these men that go away and have a secret family in Texas somewhere, that wouldn't happen for women. If women went away, their secret would be a house by themselves,
Right.
alone, with a book. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And she dedicated her life to my dad and supporting him and to taking care of us. And so I think she just was like, I'm kind of over that.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I love that. That's fascinating. Well, let me show, if you don't mind, one of the
yeah,
things on your podcast, or on your podcast, on your website is just a quick little PDF that
yeah,
you offer for people, 10 signs of a healthy self. And this is the thing about therapy and awakening, is they're not complicated.
right,
And
right.
yet they are. I mean, when you discover them, you're like, wait, what? Why didn't I think of that? And that's where, the therapy. So you said, I consider the opinions of others, but I make the final decision in my life.
Yes.
One of the signs.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
talk about that, because
Yeah.
sure,
So
that's
so
one of the things.
they want to make the decision for you,
Right.
right? Like we in the church, there's lip service to agency, but when it comes down to it, we want obedience. And I think what I've seen with people who have a strong sense of self, they're aware of other people. They seek input, but that input doesn't dictate. So I think that's the importance, is like that you kind of go, this is ultimately my decision.
Interesting. Do you think there has anything to do, because I've wondered about this, the idea that there is a God the Father that we are literal children of, and then that we have a Savior that has laid out these rules and pathways for us. Then there's this Satan guy that's always standing in the middle of the path, going woohoo, woohoo,
Yeah,
come my way, hey, who, and those three figures to me allow people to blame them for their behavior.
right.
Well, I was doing really well, but I really slipped up and Satan took over.
I was tempted.
Yes. And so I did things I'm not proud of, but it was because of Satan's
Yeah,
temptation.
yeah.
Then I made the decision.
Right. We have to take responsibility for our decisions, and
Yeah.
with the input of other people that we trust and care about.
And not only in that department, but also even in the other departments, it's like, well, I didn't know what I was doing, but suddenly I wrote somebody this letter, asked them if I could have a job. They said, yes, we'd love to hire you. Jesus saves. And I'm
Right.
like, or
Or you reached out and got a job.
so it's like religion seems to give people an out for taking responsibility for their own behavior in the good and
Interesting.
the bad.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, it's fascinating. But okay, so tell a little bit about, and you're probably so tired of telling this story, but
What?
one of the things that just broke my heart was I was listening to you on another podcast, and you were talking about how one of the things that hurt the most was when the church was kind of coming down on you,
Uh-huh.
and saying, look, we don't like what you're doing. We feel as though you're leading people to apostasy or to leave the church.
Yeah.
And we'd like to talk to you about that. And you were like, well, who are these people that I'm
Right.
supposedly? And he said, well, people of your congregation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he
And
said some people outside, but there are some people inside the
yeah,
congregation. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So talk about that, because you at the time were in a very service oriented position in this congregation.
Yeah. So my ex-husband was a couple years ago was serving as bishop, and I was in the Relief Society presidency. He was since released. So when this most recent conversation happened, I didn't have a calling, which was not my choice. I just never had a calling after I was released. And so that was kind of suspicious. Um, so I didn't have a calling at the time, but I had served in lots of callings in the Relief Society, primary young women's, and had been in this ward for a long time. And so the thought that there were complaints from people in my ward
Yeah.
and that they didn't come to me really
Yeah.
stung.
Yeah. And especially because I think there's so much of it, especially for women, there's so much resentment of who does she think she is that she got to do
Yeah.
stuff. Because
Yeah.
I've had that. I remember the whole Camille Johnson thing when I found
Mm,
out that she was an attorney and she only had 3 kids and they're like 5 years apart, and her and her husband decided, and I remember
yeah.
going, "That's baloney. That's
Yeah.
how come you get to be the Young Women's General President with 3 kids? You're a full-time attorney with a private practice, and I was told to leave and go home and have babies."
Right. I
I
know.
resent that. I resented
I
that.
know.
So I'm like, "I don't like you, Camille Johnson." So
Yeah.
do you feel like a lot of the resentment is that where women are looking at you like, "Who does she think she is thinking that she has a brain of her own?"
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's some of that. I think some of it is just fear that
Mhm.
I'm not evangelizing for the church, that
Ah,
I'm saying there are problems.
yeah,
And people are saying, well, then you hate the church. I'm like, no, I'm just saying there are problems and there are people in pain. And there are things that we could do that are easy fixes. And I'm all about decreasing pain and increasing support for members of the church.
that's interesting. How do you feel about the changes that are being made and the glory and the hallelujahs that are being done with these changes? Because I will admit it, I'm one of these like, oh, now we get to wear tank tops. Oh, okay. Where
No.
I, where I had to wear this ugly wedding dress, with a high neck and
Yeah.
long sleeves down to my wrists,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
strapless gown. It's like, oh, when did that rule change, God?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So,
So it
ugh,
just, I think it highlights how trivial and how arbitrary some of the things that we've thought were important
yeah,
are.
yeah,
I do think it's progress, like I really do. And until something structurally changes, it's only going to be crumbs.
yeah. So the patriarchy is still the same. The roles are still defined. I know Oakes is going to get that daggone thing in the Doctrine and Covenants section, whatever. He will not die until that thing has been
The
canonized.
family proclamation.
So
Yeah.
those roles are still there, and the
Yeah, but it's been less rigid. They're still leaning that way, but it's less rigid. Women have more voice, but I mean, it was what, like the early 2000s that when, or 20, early 2020s, that women were added to the top councils of the church. Up until the last 5 years, there weren't any women on the top councils of the church. Like
yeah,
it's 2025. This is like not news, right?
yeah, yeah,
And there's one woman on each of the councils, one. And
yeah,
the church is 50% women,
yeah, yeah,
approximately.
yeah,
And so it's just, until women's voices are included at every level, it's just going to be crumbs. And it's progress. Like, I recognize it's progress. It's good. The changes that have happened since I was married in 1989 to now are amazing, but it's still sexist.
it's still sexist and it's still breadcrumbs. And it's like, when are you ladies going to be happy and leave us
Right,
alone?
right, right.
Okay, let's go on to this next one. Um, another idea that you are self-aware is, I am generally aware of my thoughts, feelings, needs, and wants.
Yeah, we've talked about that before, right? Like, that's
Yeah,
self-awareness.
yeah.
Um, being and that's kind of a way to check in every day, is what am I thinking, feeling, wanting, and needing? And if you can answer those questions, then you probably have a pretty well-developed sense of self.
And if you can answer those questions without shaming yourself, like,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh, I feel as though I'm not fulfilled, that I really had these interests I wanted to pursue, and I'm not being allowed to do them, and that makes me really sad. I must be selfish.
right,
So
right.
being self-aware without feeling
Without judging yourself.
yes, we judge ourselves so poorly.
Yeah, yeah,
We're a
absolutely.
very comparative creature, I must say, which
Yeah,
is not good at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go on to when I allow others to think and feel differently than I do.
Yeah,
That
so
yeah,
differentiation of self, and I hammer this all the time, but it's like you do not have to think and feel the same way as someone else to be close.
yeah,
You can be different, and in a culture um, where conformity is so valued, it makes this really hard.
yeah. Yeah, because there is a camaraderie. Well, which is why, I mean, and I do think this is human nature. There is this tribal thing where in
Right, right,
high school, the Asian kids are going to sit at this table, and the, African American kids are going to sit over at this table, and the Mormons are over here, and the evangelicals are over here because we're all tribal and we all believe the same thing, and there's a
right.
safeness in it. And one of the things that I know when you leave the church, there is a scary feeling like I don't know where my safe tribe is
Yeah,
any longer.
it can
And
be that. Yeah,
yeah. And I don't know how people that live in Utah, I don't know how they do it, because when your ward, your congregation is within a square block of your
right.
house, and your church you literally walk to every day because there's one on every corner. It's definitely, and I live in Arizona where there's a strong LDS,
Yeah. Oh, the second Utah.
yeah. So it's funny because I love going to a restaurant. My husband, I love when you have a mixed faith marriage,
Mm,
because they get all the benefits of, they go to church, and then they got to take the wife out for lunch. They're just doing their job. She wanted to go out for brunch. I said, fine. I'm keeping
yeah.
peace in my marriage. It's not up to me. I'm just serving her by taking,
Yes,
you know.
I
So
love
I
it.
so I love when we go to brunch and there's a whole table of LDS people. I can tell from their white shirts and their ties, and I'm like, "Oh, we're doing brunch too, are we now? When did
Yeah,
that rule?" That's just my favorite thing to do.
that's funny.
I'll
You're
always say,
like busted, busted,
"Yeah,
all of
you ask
you.
that guy what ward they're in, honey. Just I want to see him like, "Bleh,"
Yeah,
a little bit.
that's
But
funny.
anyway, so yeah, but the whole idea that you have a self, I think there is this idea of you are a daughter of God, therefore, here's the path.
Right.
This is what daughters of God do. And so there is that thing. If I don't do this, I will lose my position as a daughter of God, which is
Yeah.
frightening for some people.
Right, right. And
Yeah,
that's not something you can lose.
right. Okay, so let's go. So I have a clear sense of values, priorities, and preferences, and can clearly express them. This has got to be something that doesn't come naturally.
No, and it's okay if you take those from external sources, right? The church gave me a lot of the values that I hold,
Right,
but I hold them. They're
right,
not out here, they're in here now. And so
right.
this is really about internalizing and owning what is important to you. That's up to you to decide, not an external um, organization, person, force, whatever.
So, how does someone who's been told their whole life what their values are? These are the things that you should value. These are the things that you should put absolutely zero value on whatsoever. As a woman, you should put zero value in any kind of recognition for an outside activity versus having really active children that have grown. They're all missionaries. They were all married in the temple. That was the highlight of every woman, is like, look what I've done.
Right.
I've got 9 valiant spirits because I raised them to be this, because that was my
Yeah.
role. And so how do you teach people to go, okay, let's talk about what your values are, um, versus what you were indoctrinated to value?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
moral things that people, you've probably heard this. If you don't belong to a religion, you will never have any values. You will be
Right.
a
Which
murderer.
is which is ridiculous because 99.8% of the population are not members of the church. So no one has values, no one has joy, no one, right? Like that's just a ridiculous thing to think.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's really, once people leave the church, it's really about sorting. And there are actually some really great values cards decks that you actually sort, and you say like, okay, you lay them out and go like, okay, what are my top values? What am
Mm,
I going to let go of? What am I not going to prioritize?
yeah.
And one of the problems with with how the church teaches values is it collapses the value with a behavior, and values and behaviors are different.
Ah,
So, for example, I value generosity.
mhm.
The church tells you generosity is tithing,
That's true.
right? But
Right.
you can separate out generosity for me is now donating to LGBTQ causes in Utah.
Mhm.
It could be taking care of my granddaughter who lives 20 minutes away. It
Mhm.
could be answering questions on social media for free. It could, right? Like I get to define that. So the church taught me that value. I'm keeping that value. I'm just defining it and expressing it in a different way.
I love that. That's so interesting. You know what my big value is? I return my shopping carts, and I take that.
Thoughtfulness, that the value is thoughtfulness.
Yes,
The expression is returning your shopping cart.
yes, and I will pick up other people's shopping carts,
Yeah.
return those. So that's
And
as far as I've gotten so far.
I love it. I will let people in a traffic. When I'm in traffic, I will always let people in.
Yeah.
I value kindness in traffic situations.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, and it is so I remember watching something where a father, an atheist father, was with his children every day. In every morning, they would start out and they would say, "What are we going to do today? We're going to be kind. We're going to be loving. We're going to be compassionate." He's teaching his children these values to, have respect for other people and to be kind
Mhm.
to other people. And those are things that can be taught. You don't have to have a religion to teach that.
Right, right.
And in a way, I feel as though there was and I know they're trying to, they're kind of trying to wash this and dilute it, but there was we are a peculiar people. We have the only true and living gospel. We have the only power of God on the earth. And so, too bad for you. So sad for you. We
Yeah,
will
yeah.
serve, but we will serve each other.
Right.
And we don't necessarily, and then, if there's a hurricane, we'll throw some water out at you, you know, go away or join the church, one of the two. And we took that as, being kind or being service oriented, because we were told what to do. I
Right.
go to the church every Saturday. Therefore, I am a very service value minded person because I
Right.
follow that obedient structure. And it is hard for people when they break out of that to go, well, now what do I do?
Right.
You know,
Right. You have
I don't
to
know.
recreate. You have to um, reconstruct your values.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just take a lot of the values and they just express them differently.
Yeah.
And so, like, you don't have to fall apart when you leave the church. You can
Right.
still keep all the values that you choose.
Right, right, exactly. And I mean, that is even like the word of wisdom, it's like, well, I'm not going to start smoking.
Yeah.
That's not my thing. And even alcohol, I kind of put it off for a while. And I thought, well, I'm going to try a few things. And I'm like, drink a little glass of wine. You're like, "Bleh, bleh. You people pay how much for that bottle?" It's like, have you tried Diet Coke? Because it's
Right.
way better than this
It
red
tastes a
wine.
lot better. I'm with you.
Yeah. So, and I'm also still self-conscious of my behavior. So I don't want to do anything that would, I don't want to ingest something that's going to make me act like a loon.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit skeptical on that. Plus, I listen to all the health things where there's like alcohol is poison. I'm like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so it's just one of those things that you can take on your own. But I love but that's a lot of pressure on someone who's never had to think for themselves. Right.
That's where it gets overwhelming. And so, like, my hope is that whether people stay in the church or they leave, they're doing that work all along the way.
Interesting.
So you
Yeah.
don't have to leave the church to own your own values. You
Yeah.
can do that in the church, but it's really about taking the external authority and bringing it inside and saying, I actually get to choose my life. I'm in charge of my life.
Interesting. Which is, if you really do a lot of, a study, and you are familiar at all with the Jewish religion, or even what a lot of Christians think Jesus was teaching was, I am in you.
Right.
The divine is in you. The temple is in you.
Yeah.
My spirit is in you. And so that whole idea that I don't have to have an exterior thing that I'm latching onto to feel, if that's your choice, to feel the love of God or
Right.
have a belief in Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of that's new to a lot of LDS people too, because
Yeah.
it is so exterior. Everything
Yeah.
is show. It's facade.
Not everything.
Not
Let's n
everything. Yeah.
no, but there tends to be external referencing a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Interesting. The 5 people in front of the garage door every Sunday morning in our new Abercrombie and Fitch outfit. But anyway, I digress. Yeah. So, okay, let me go on to one of these other ones. I accept responsibility for the outcome of my choices, and I
Mhm.
enjoy the company of others, and I enjoy time alone. I really like
That's a that's
alone.
a big one, that there are so many people who don't enjoy being alone.
I know. Yeah,
And I think that that balance is really healthy, to be able to connect with people and have connection, and then be able to tolerate aloneness.
so, do you discuss that in your sessions, where
Yeah.
what is it about being alone that they're so afraid of?
Anxiety, it's just unknown. They're used to other people regulating them, right? Like, if I'm by myself, like, who do I reference to, like, calm myself? And so it's really, that was actually one of the early things that I remember in my therapy. Was my therapist assigned me to go do things by myself that I have never done before. So I went skiing by myself. I went to dinner by myself. I went to a movie by myself, like, as a teenager, which is, like, horrifying, right? And just to get acquainted with, like, what comes up, what do I think about when I'm by myself, how do I feel, and just journal about it and really get comfortable with that. And it really helped me, and I realized, like, oh, I over time I've come to really appreciate my time alone. And for the first time in my life ever, I live alone, which
Yeah.
I'm loving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Loving.
Oh, look, I put that object down and it's still
And
there.
it's still there, and it's everything's where I left it, and it's decorated how I want it, and no one's crap is anywhere. I'm like, "This is heaven."
Exactly. I know. I love the Carol Burnett thing where they said, "Will you ever marry again?" And she said, "I might, but we'd have to live in separate houses." You
I
know?
I actually have said that, like, I don't know that, I mean, who knows? But at
Yeah.
least right now, I'm really enjoying living alone, and I don't think I would anytime soon would live with someone or get married.
Yeah. That's amazing. Okay. Well, I want to talk a little bit about, because you went through some like harassment, some online
Oh,
harassment.
some. Yeah, the last 5 years.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of stuff in the news right now about, where does freedom of speech stop and stalking start, or
Mm.
social media bullying start. And tell a little bit about what you went through, how you handled it, and what do you consider, like, was there ever a threshold that you thought we've crossed the
Yes, yes. There was a DesNat, so Deseret Nationalist person, so which is basically a group of anonymous people primarily on Twitter, and the hashtag is DEZNAT, and they go after progressives, ex-Mormons, and LGBTQ people. And one of them came after me and found out where my church is and said he was coming to my stake to bring evidence of my apostasy and call for my excommunication, which was terrifying because there were also some violent memes posted about me. And I contacted the police. Well, I contacted my stake president. I also contacted the police because an Instagram person of mine actually did some sleuthing and found out his identity. So I called the police, sent the police to his house. I had my stake president call his stake president and his bishop. I sent proof of everything that he'd said about me, and the police said it has not crossed the line of harassment, but we will go and talk to him and let him know he's really close.
Yeah.
And
He
he stopped.
he did stop. Okay.
Yeah, and he was banned for I got him banned from Twitter. He came back as a different handle, um, but that was frightening.
Yeah.
That's the only one where I felt personally threatened or my family was threatened. The other ones are just more, harassment online, people commenting on my appearance, people commenting about I'm a spoiled brat, or I'm, thinking that I'm leading people out of the church, or that I've had plastic surgery, or whatever, like
That's so
whatever.
interesting how they go, and I don't think we have a very good example as the leader of our country right now of not
Yeah.
doing the hyperbolic statements, because that does seem to be the first thing that people go to,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've
But
had the okay old lady,
yeah.
or
Yeah.
how much work have you had done, this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I'm like, whether
yeah,
I have or haven't, like, why are you talking about it?
yeah,
And just when it comes to like ad hominem attacks, it's just ridiculous. I'm fine with people disagreeing with me. Like,
yeah,
that's fine.
yeah,
But when it becomes personal, and there's a particular person on YouTube who has made basically like his highest viewed videos are ones where he attacks me. So he's basically made his channel on critiquing me and trying to make me look bad or evil or wrong,
yeah,
and people claiming that I'm leading people out of the church. And I can honestly say I have never told anyone to leave the church ever.
yeah. Yeah, I have never heard you say any. I've always heard you say, "My role is to help you find peace and happiness in your life. So you
Yeah,
tell me where you're at, and I will help you. We will set up a strategy somehow for
right.
you to achieve this." Ta-da! That's it.
Absolutely. And so, but they think if you say or acknowledge anything negative, you're trying to lead people out of the church. And I just don't think that way. I'm like, I think we can critique policies
Yeah,
and say this is harmful for this marginalized group because of this, or
right.
gosh, this is an example of inequality, without saying the church is bad and everyone should leave it. Like, I'm
Yeah,
not saying the church is bad, even.
yeah,
I'm saying this policy is hurtful. That
right.
so, but it's like when you're in a binary mindset where it's all good or all bad, you go, oh, you're saying it's bad. I'm like, no, I'm saying this is harmful, and
Yeah,
here's why. but
yeah,
but that is too too threatening to people who are like, everybody has to think only good things about the church, and I'm like, I don't
yeah.
agree.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you pointed out, and when you're telling your story of where you're at now in the LDS church and where you were and what you were fighting for, was the men who had the power to call you into a disciplinary meeting.
Mhm. Yeah.
And, I mean, I've made a point on a lot of my social media is the adolescence of adults in the Mormon church. How it just seems like there's this stop point at 13 that, everybody turns 13 and they never get past that. And I remember one time listening to Dan McClellan, and he said something like, I called BYU BY High School. And because everybody was just so childish and immature.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but I think when you talk about how these men called you into the principal's office,
Yeah.
basically, that's where the adolescence, the idea.
Yeah.
So talk about that.
Yeah. And I consciously said, I'm choosing to engage in this. Like, I knew that I didn't have to go in. And I actually didn't go in for several months because my stake president would not tell me why he wanted to meet. And I
Yeah,
said, if you want to meet just to check in, I'll tell you I'm fine, and we can do that over text. And
interesting.
so, but he called me and he was able to tell me on the phone, I'm concerned about some of your social media posts. And I said, okay, like, I'm willing to come and meet with you, but I chose that as a grown ass adult. Like, I'm gonna humor you and meet with you.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I remember my first inclination when I came to the decision that this was not a group I wanted to be associated with, was to resign my membership, because I said, like you said, not having the strength to actually verbally confront someone in authority over me, a man. So
Hmm.
I thought, I will resign my membership so that I can take away that power that you have over me. And
Right,
I don't
right.
have to worry about getting called into the office, but I will take that power on. I will not
Yeah.
let you take that power away from me.
Right,
So
right.
that was,
And that's in having these interactions with my stake president and my bishop, who are delightful people
yeah,
in a system that doesn't work for me. I, I forgot where I was going. Oh, I just was like, I don't want to play this game.
yeah,
Like, I
exactly.
just don't want to. I don't want to play this game where people think that they have a say because you actually don't, and I'm going to choose to step back.
Yeah. How do you explain to people that that this power that is set up is a institution and not necessarily a,
A
I don't know,
person.
yeah, or a
Yeah.
God-given, mandate that came down from Mount Sinai on,
Well,
yeah,
I have no agenda to convince people of anything, or that it's not of God. It could be of God, or it could be harmful. Like I'm really in that, like, God could be using the culture that the church was born into as a structure for it to grow. Like, I'm open to that, right?
yeah,
It could be that. Um, I do think that men and women are inherently unequal in a patriarchal system. That's part of the definition of patriarchy.
yeah,
So when people try to argue that with me, I'm just like, there's nothing to argue. That is a definition of
yeah,
patriarchy, is
yeah,
inequality.
yeah,
Like, that's built in, it's baked in.
yeah,
So when people try to argue that, like, well, I feel equal, I'm like, that's great that you feel equal. And there are objective measures that, like, look at the picture of the church leaders, the general authorities. It's
right,
unequal when you
right,
look at men and women, or racial, like white versus people of color. It's just unequal. Like, you can see it. It's not a discussion.
yeah. There's so many little things that you take on, and I know that whole shelf thing. I hate that whole shelf thing,
Yeah.
but it's true. You do take on these little cracks, little slits. I remember going to a timeout for women at BYU, and Wendy Watson was the speaker, and she started out by saying, "I look out over this audience, and I'm going to tell you the same thing I tell my students. You are chosen. You are the chosen generation. You are the people. They're a superior." I forget her verbiage, but it
Yeah.
was very elitism. And I remember thinking, I don't like you very much. That's not
Mm,
true. And I'm sad that you tell your people that.
yeah.
So then when she, married Nelson, and somehow, I was like, yeah, I'm not good with this. So
Mm,
I was never a big fan of that whole,
yeah.
you're so special, you're the elite people type
Well,
thing.
and
But
every generation has been told that.
I know, I know.
I
Yeah,
was told that, your generation, the generation now, the millennials were told that, every generation. So who's the special one? They
yeah.
just keep getting more and more special?
Yeah. And I like what, I forget who was it that was just, oh, I think it was Rebecca Biblioteca, where she was saying this new thing about the, Jesus may have already been to Adam on Diamond, and these are the last days, and
Mm,
you are, this kind of thing. She says, that's scary, because we've already got some prepper problems, Chad Daybell.
right,
And, we've got these last day things where people think this is the end, which they've been talking about for 3,000 years.
right.
And so that's scary. And I feel like there's a little bit more of it now that Nelson has died and Oakes is in charge. But interesting. Okay, I
Mm,
want to go. I'm not going to keep you all day, but I want to. Let me see. Okay, I can empathize with others without taking on their burdens. Oh
this
my
is so
God.
hard, so
Yes,
hard.
yes,
And it's a skill that I've had to develop, because I have such an empathetic heart, and I love people so much, and I want to be helpful. I've had to really work on emotional boundaries. And
yeah,
it's hard to articulate how to do that.
yeah.
But one of the things I do is I visualize, like, I'm in a bubble, and it's like people stuff, like, it impacts me, but it slides off, right? Like, I don't internalize it. And
Okay.
because if I just took in all the pain of the 30 years of people that I've talked with, and in the therapy office, like, I would
Oh,
be a wreck.
yeah,
And that you have to learn how to empathize and then give it back to people. Like, and one of the big turning points for me was I recognized, if I take on someone else's burden as my own, I am sending a message that I don't trust them with their own life. And that's the opposite message that I want to give. And so I just say, like, they walk out the door and I'm like, here you go. I trust you. I trust you.
interesting.
And I do that with my kids. Like, I don't worry about, it's like, I trust you. This is your stewardship. It's not mine. I've got my own.
Yeah. Well, and I love that because you are in a, how do people learn strength? How do they learn independence? How do they learn autonomy? They have to experience it, they have to perform
Yeah,
it. And so it's like for you to take on their burdens and what, can I, it kind of goes back to the whole mothering role. It's like, well, let me babysit for you every single day. And
right.
so that you can sleep in and you can do this because you're having some mental problems and you need to relax. And so I will take on the burdens of raising your children so that you can do this rather than saying, what do you need to do to become mentally healthy or strong enough
Right.
to take care of your family?
Right. And to think that I could solve or take on someone else's burden is actually really prideful.
Yeah, that's
Like
true.
that I can know and I realized that by parenting one of my kids was really hard, and I realized like, wait, who am I to know what her journey is? Like
Yeah.
I don't know. And I apologized to her. I said, I am so sorry that I thought I knew what was best for you. And there is no way I can know that for another person. So you do you. Like, I'm going to do what I can to keep you safe while you're a minor. But other than that, like, it's your life.
Right. But and the problem is when you've been raised in a church that doesn't give you critical thinking skills and
Yeah.
tells you everything you're thinking or feeling, then that is a hard thing to learn at, 50 or above.
Yeah.
You're
It's
like,
really
I
hard.
get to work this out myself. How do I work this out myself?
Yeah.
Who am I going to talk to? Who's going to tell me, where to be on Wednesday night at 9 o'clock that I feel because I remember thinking, look, I can't do this temple ceremony anymore, but I need to be obedient and go to the temple every week. So I'm going to become a temple worker. And that way
Mm,
I can be there, but I don't have to listen to all this,
yeah.
brouhaha type stuff. And I felt good. I felt
Yeah.
good because I was obeying the rules. And so there is a feeling of kind of feeling bad about yourself when you start not obeying.
Right. Right. And that's where that sense of self, it's like, if that's what you want and that's what resonates with you and feels right for you, then it probably is. When
Yeah,
my core, my intuition, my deepest knowing has never led me wrong, ever. Not
wow,
once.
yeah,
When I listen to myself, like my highest self, it's always what's best for me. I've never regretted it. And
right.
so like that's what I want for every woman, especially women with LDS backgrounds. Like I want every woman to trust. Like you actually know more than anyone else could ever tell you what your life is about and what you want and what's next for you.
That is an absolutely brand new concept for people that have been raised in this because not only is their life on earth already delegated, but their life after death is
Yeah.
delegated.
Yeah.
And so the idea that you could make a decision on your own is like that is not in the plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nowhere does it say.
And it's not, and people misunderstand me. It's not entirely on your own, right? Like I take in the input of my church, of my family, of my loved ones, of my friends. And ultimately I listen to me for the final, um, for
Decision,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And so it's not just, I'm going to do whatever I want, defiant
yeah.
little kid,
Which
right?
is what you're accused of, right?
Right, I know, and I'm like, that's not what I believe.
Yeah.
It's like I take in the best wisdom, and I take it in, and then I go inside, and then I go, "Okay." And that's how I felt like with my recent divorce. It was like the deepest knowing was like, "Yep, you're right, it's time. Yep."
Interesting. And isn't that what a great leader is expected to do? I mean, the accolades for a great leader would be like, people are always talking about Reagan, who worked with the other side. He would sit down with, or Lincoln. Lincoln purposely brought in people that had different ideas that he did, so that you could sit down, you could listen, you could take
Yeah.
advice from experts in other areas, but then ultimately, you as the leader have to make
Make
it.
the decision. Right, you're the
And
leader of your life.
yes, and everyone else has authorized that except for women.
Right, right.
Women are told you can listen, you can have your things, but then we're going to sit down and talk, and I'm going to decide. What's
Right.
best for you? And as a subjective woman whose purpose is to be my handmaiden, then you will listen to what I have decided after listening to you, really what's best for you.
Right, right, and it really needs to come from us. It's time.
And you're going to hurt people's feelings, and you're going to make some people mad along the way.
But you're gonna hurt more people if you betray yourself and you get sick and you get mental health problems and you, are dysregulated emotionally and you're resentful, like, you're gonna hurt more people
That's so
if
true.
you, like, stuff down your emotions and what you want, you will end up being a burden, and I've
Yeah.
seen it happen over and over again. It's like if you don't take care of you, you will be forced to let other people take care of you, and you won't be able to take care of them. It's actually selfish if you don't take care of yourself.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, in every area of your life,
Right.
physically and mentally, and in every area of your life. I highly recommend. Ben Stiller has got a new documentary out on. I think it's Apple TV. I
Okay.
don't Netflix, and it's about his parents, the Stiller and Maron, and these two people working together. And he really highlights, or maybe I just saw this, maybe someone else would watch this and see it completely different, but he really highlights how his mother, Anne Mirren, I think it was Mirren, wanted to be a serious dramatic actress and was very talented, but she married Jerry and Jerry Stiller, and they became a comedy duo, and they were
Mm,
very successful. And she was actually more the lead comic in it, and he was kind
yeah.
of the sidekick. And he knew that, and he recognized that. But it's the life story of, it wasn't until they reached a level of success, but then they separated, and she was actually cast independently from him in
Mm,
different roles on Broadway, off Broadway,
yeah.
uh, and she was able to finally be the dramatic actress that she always wanted to be.
Mm,
She had two children,
beautiful.
and she had this partner that they loved each other deeply. But one of the things that they said was they'd been married for like 62 years, but they each went to therapy separately and together.
Mm,
And I thought that's the secret right there. And I've heard
yeah.
people say, like, couples counseling doesn't work. And I thought it probably doesn't if you're not doing independent counseling
Mm,
as
mm,
well, right?
yeah. Yeah, that can be the case for sure. If you have unresolved issues, you gotta work on yourself too.
Yeah, you got to work on yourself. And I mean, and I've really kind of pushed back for therapy because I didn't want to be one of those people that blames everything on your mom, right?
Oh my gosh.
Always like, oh, it's my parents weren't good
It's
parents.
not about blame.
Yeah,
It's about understanding yourself and where you came from. And it's like being able to reflect on your history because your history is what got you here. And so it's really like the more I have done work in the past, the more I have empathy for my parents. I don't blame them. I honor them as I see them as whole people.
yeah,
And some people go, I don't want to be a victim and just go blame my parents. And I'm like,
yeah,
it's about understanding, not just understanding how you got to this point, but also understanding how they got to that point,
yeah.
right? Like they're humans. And once we let our parents be human, it's easier to love them and to forgive them. And so I think that's a really big misconception about therapy is you're just going to go blame the parents on everything. And,
Yes,
you know,
I think that's absolutely right. I see that all the time on different posts and things like
yeah,
that. And you hear the mothers are like, "Oh, I guess it's all my fault."
it's the mom's fault. I'm sorry. Yeah, I wrote a song years ago called "Open Apology." It's just like the chorus goes, "I'm here to tell you you're right. I'm taking guesses, making messes, learning lessons of love and of life. I'm here to tell you you're right. So here's an open apology from you, from me to my kids. Right? I'm just going to apologize before you even know that I'm totally screwing you up."
Exactly. I really screwed up in this area. I am just letting you know right now. Yes, and
Yeah, I preemptively apologized and said, "My kids have a perpetual therapy fund for the rest of their life."
that's so true. That's so true because if they say with age comes wisdom, right? And I don't know if the wisdom is actually knowledge or just a realization of
Mm,
what happened, how you lived, how you parented, how you spousally partnered, whatever it is, you realize, yeah, I kind of screwed up in that area, or, I
Yeah.
did a pretty good job in this area, but I really was, kind of not really thinking outside the box where I should have listened to you more, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, that's the
Yeah.
wisdom that you gain is more like,
Yeah. Perspective.
the perspective,
And
exactly.
and it's really about integrating, right? Like, I can see my successes. I can see where I worked hard. I can see where I was weak. I could see where I made mistakes. And it's like it doesn't impact how I feel about myself.
Yeah,
It's just all woven into my experience. And I don't have to feel shame that it's not all good or all perfect. It's like it's integrated light and dark.
yeah. I think the biggest thing is learning to laugh at yourself,
Yeah.
to be able to go, "Oh, that was really stupid. I
Yeah.
should."
Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many relationships that could be solved if the child went to the parent and said, "You know what? I felt like you really ignored me in the family." And I'm like, "Probably did. You were 4." By
Yeah.
that time I was, I probably did because, our youngest child was severely disabled. So you
Mm.
guys were all feral.
Yeah. No,
But
I
yeah,
just tell them, like, every time your kid says, "Mom, you weren't there for me. You didn't do this." I'm like, "You're so right.
yeah,
I'm so sorry." Like,
yeah,
if parents would stop defending and just own it, like,
yeah,
it's fine that you weren't there for that. Like, it's fine that you weren't there all the time perfectly because you're in your own process. And so just apologize for specific things, because a lot of parents are like, "Oh, I'm sorry for anything I've done that hurts you." That's not an
yeah.
apology.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. And isn't that the truth? I mean, that's the odd thing about the Mormon church is they teach that, they preach that, it's part of the repentance process, but it's like, this is what you need to do. We're not doing that. But
Right.
you need to do that.
We're not doing it.
We're not doing that. Yeah, we're not going to apologize for anything.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a whole nother podcast. Well,
Yeah,
Julie,
for
this
sure.
has been amazing. And you tell everyone because I am so impressed. Not only are you over 30-year therapist that has worked with so many different people in different areas, but you have a Wasatch Therapy.
Wasatch Family Therapy. Yeah. So I have 3 therapy clinics in Utah. We also serve Arizona, Idaho, Montana. I'm, I'm missing another state. So yeah, so I'm licensed in Arizona.
So then you do like Zoom type
Exactly.
therapy, stuff like that.
Yep, yep. And so we see clients ages 3 on up, just through the whole lifespan.
Wow.
We have play therapists, teen therapists, couples therapists. And so I have a team of about 25, 26 therapists, and they're amazing. And I hand select them, so I really trust them. So wasatchfamilytherapy.com or Wasatch Family Therapy on social media. And then I have drjuliehanks.com, where I do my coaching, consulting, my group coaching community, courses, and those kind of things are at Dr. Julie Hanks on social media. And I'm thinking of changing my name back to my maiden name. So all that might change. It may go to Julie Diazevedo, but right now it's Dr. Julie Hanks.
That, what, I have to tell you, when we spend half the year in Utah, and we
Uh-huh.
really like the medical care that you get in Utah, much better than here in Arizona. I think Arizona's just flooded with snowbirds. And I think they get overwhelmed very
Yeah.
easily. So we decided to switch all our medical care to Intermountain, and so I had to find a new primary care.
Mm.
And so my new primary care physician is Azevedo, not the D, but just Azevedo.
Azevedo.
And I can
Okay.
remember her because of you. That's
Yes. Oh,
so
well, wonderful. Maybe we're related somewhere down the line.
yeah, interesting.
Oh,
Well, thank you
Renee,
so much. This is
thanks. Thanks for the
and
invitation.
if it was possible for me to be vulnerable enough to have all my therapy sessions posted, I wouldn't have to do a podcast. I'll just do a therapy session. Call it a podcast, and then people will be like, that lady needs more therapy.
I love it. I love it. You're so great. Thanks for the good work you do. And I have loved this conversation. It's been delightful to see you through the years, and it's been fun to have a more in-depth conversation with you.
Well, and like I said, I love that you said to me, you can say no.
You know,
And my biggest thing is to tell other women, when your husband says, I know we just got back from Thailand, but I want to go on another mission, you can say, no,
no.
I
And
won't.
no is a complete sentence.
Yeah. You don't even have to say no and why.
Yeah,
Just
just no.
no.
I
That's
love it.
Beautiful way to end. All right. Thank you so much. And I will put your links in the description.
Wonderful. Thanks so
Have a great
much.
day.
You
Bye-bye.
too.
Oh my gosh. Like I said, this was an absolute dream come true. I absolutely loved having Julie on. And I really encourage all of you. I have always really kind of been standoffish against therapy, but having growing older, moving to a different location, a different community, I should have Julie on to talk all about aging and how aging changes your friendships, your relationships with other people, because a lot of times the friends that we had growing up were based on our children and their activities and their social life, and our friends became their friends' parents, and how that all changes. And I've seen a lot of talk about, women especially, how their friendship dynamics change as they age. And so a lot of things for women especially is just the talk, being able to get together with a bunch of women and just talk and kind of get it off your chest. And as you age, you kind of lose that a little bit. So and I'm finding that the older I get, the more active we get in different areas. And so I think therapy is going to have to be something I'm going to have to pick up if I want to stay mentally healthy. And I'll be calling Julie. So that's a warning, Julie. I'll be calling Wasatch here pretty soon. So thanks for joining me today on She Became Visible. I am going to be absent for the next couple of weeks. I'm actually going on safari. And so I don't think I'll be able to have podcasts in the middle of the jungle. Oh, too bad. Anyway, so I will see you in November. And I hope you all have a great day. And don't forget to become visible. Choose yourself today. That's my message. Bye-bye.